Marc D. Crepeaux here with LettersandBooks.com, Rusty Wheels Media, Letters Never Meant to Be Read. I'm here with Tina Rafowitz. Tina, how's it going? Where are you?
Great. Great. I'm in Cabo San Lucas, well, San Jose del Cabo, Mexico.
How come everybody I interview is in an exotic location and I'm not?
Well, you're a little younger, so could be that.
Tina was a contributor for Letters Never Meant to Be Read, Volume 3. Tina, you have your copy? Let's hold up our copies.
I do. Very exciting. Bookmarked and everything.
That's great. I want to ask you first, Tina, how did you hear about Letters Never Meant to Be Read?
I heard about it. It was a writing prompt for a writing group that I take part in Minneapolis, my hometown.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a group that do you physically get together and
yes,
and have prompts? And so someone brought it to the group?
Yes, there's two people who lead the group, two women.
Mm-hmm.
And actually one of the women has opened this, basically a women's center called Modern Well, that there's writing groups, there's women businessmen, it's pretty women focused. Men are allowed in, I do believe. But anyway, so the writing prompt for this one was Letters Never Meant to Be Read, and oftentimes it's a real writing prompt that is something that is submittable.
Oh, wow.
And so I was a very new writer. When I wrote this letter, I used a lot of exclamation points, which I have to watch. But it was really a good process for me, and I submitted it. And there was a contest. So yeah. I was in an airport when the contest was live, and I heard the three winners, which were wonderful, the three letters, and I just kind of put it away out of my mind, and then I got the email that I was going to be part of it, the Volume 3. So very exciting.
Well, I'm glad, and it's interesting to me how people hear about it. I always ask that question because at the time, LettersandBooks.com wasn't a site yet. It was just on my author website, marcdcrepeaux.com, and I put out the contest, and we had no idea. I had zero expectations of the response, and it just got shared around so much, and so we were very thankful for all the letters that came in. We got over 200 entries during that 3 or 4 week period. So it's always interesting to hear how people learn about us and how they learn about the contest, and it's cool. I didn't pay anything to have it put out there, and so it's nice to hear that people brought it to the writing groups and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you about your letter.
Yes.
Dear Dan.
Yes.
Did you write it in one sitting or what?
Pretty much. Well, the writing prompt time is like 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay.
During this, it's a 2-hour writing session. People share their reading, what they're reading and writing, and it's just a really cool group. And so I believe I went right home and finished it, and then read it to the two people still at home, my husband and my son, and they kind of helped me with parts that were confusing and such. And I said, I think I'm going to submit it. So that's how it happened.
That's great. And this is based on something real, right? Something that happened in your life?
It is. As a matter of fact, some people I worked with said, which company was this? And a few people who read it. Yeah. Yes.
No real names were used, right?
Oh, of course not.
Of course not, no. Well, why don't you go ahead and read Dear Dan for us?
All right. Dear Dan, what on earth would make you tell Larry, the CEO of Red Tree Incorporated, that you and I had an evening tryst that spring of 1988 in Las Vegas? I mean, I vividly remember you, the local branch office manager, with the slick hair and heavy cologne, shaking my hand and commenting on my sharp business suit and high heels. I also remember you taking me and my coworker Brad to a steak dinner at Caesars. We chatted, or should I say you bragged and boasted of your fabulous home, your incredible pool, your fancy car, etc. While Brad and I were simply happy to have a nice steak dinner. We were both extremely tired from a day of auditing the loan paperwork at your branch office, and we were anxious to get back to the Sands Hotel. As I recall quite vividly, you dropped me and Brad off at the Sands, and we each retreated to our separate hotel rooms, happy to put on our comfortable clothes and relax and watch some TV. However, back at the corporate home office in St. Paul, an entirely different rendition of that evening was somehow leaked to our CEO, Larry. This is how I came to learn of my alleged sordid encounter with you, Dan. My manager, Sally, a rough around the edges type corporate controller, called me into her office. As I was an internal auditor, Sally and I had worked together very closely and had even socialized occasionally. She liked to smoke in her office, as was apropos at the time, and that afternoon, through the haze of her smoky office, she asked me if anything inappropriate happened in Las Vegas between you and me, Dan. I was shocked. Why was Sally asking me this? And how did she even hear it? And by the way, nothing ever happened. I told Sally about our dinner, which included my coworker Brad, and about the ending of the night, which was just that, an ending. Brad and I had said our goodbyes at the entrance of the hotel, and that was that. But my manager persisted to question if it was possible that you, Dan, came by the hotel later and picked me up or came to my room. Sally told me that she had talked with Brad, who thought it was possible that you and I met up after you dropped us off at the hotel. What? No. Who else heard about this? I asked anxiously. Sally replied that it was Larry, our CEO, who had come to her with this news. You see, Dan, I know that you and Larry were very tight, but what would possess you to fabricate such a story with a young 23-year-old woman who had everything to lose? Did it feed your sick, pathetic ego? Did it make you feel powerful, virile, in control? Did you ever once think how I might feel or be portrayed? Did it even faze you to outright lie? During the same time, I was dating a personal injury lawyer to whom I recounted your fabricated tale and asked him what I could do about it. Nothing. That's what David said. Just do nothing. There's nothing you can do. It will blow over. Well, Dan, it didn't blow over for me. Not then, not even now. A few weeks after our alleged rendezvous, Abdul in HR told me that he was going to promote Brad instead of me to the senior auditor position. He added that he couldn't tell me the reason because it might hurt my feelings. I think I figured it out for myself. In my mind, I now had only one choice: leave Red Tree and find another job. And I did just that. But I will never forget you, Dan. I sometimes wonder where you are now. Maybe you've since been accused of sexual harassment since the Me Too movement. Maybe you have a nice wife and family and have changed your sick ways. Or maybe you've been promoted to a big corporate position because you know how to play the game. You were such an asshole. But I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you as well, Dan. Thank you for giving me this story to tell my own daughter, who's now the same age as I was when you tarnished my reputation with an outright lie. Thank you for letting my daughter know that she has a voice and that she needs to use it. Sincerely, Tina.
Very good.
Thank you.
Nicely done. Now that is a little bit revenge in words, right? We get a few of those here and there sprinkled out through the collection, but that's sort of your way of getting back at Dan, right?
Yes. Feels good.
Yeah. Does it? I was going to ask you, does it feel good?
It does. It feels good. And it did give me a chance to talk to my daughter. And, you know, when I first wrote it, the Me Too movement was going on, and, you know, I hesitated. I didn't want it to be a cliche, but the fact that that's the first thing that came to my mind when the writing prompt was, you know, letters never meant to be read was, I guess, apropos at the time. So.
Yeah. And in this case, you know, we have a lot that are unrequited love or rant,
yes,
or, you know, letters to mom, letters to dad that are happy or sad or angry. In this case, it's a pretty unique letter because it is revenge in words. It does have some life lessons in it. And just like I told one of the other letter writers, is that it feels good to write it, but someone's actually going to read it. And a young lady, you know, just starting out in the corporate world or in a career somewhere, you know, might read something like that and get a lesson out of it.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Just like when you said you had the conversation with your daughter. So
absolutely,
you know, someone can get something out of it, and maybe just be on the lookout or be aware of people like Dan, you know,
right,
who take advantage of situations to what, like you mentioned in the letter, to boost your own ego or.
Right. Yes. Don't get me riled up.
I don't want to get you riled up. Maybe just a little, but yeah. Enough to write the letter. Have you written any other letters since then?
I haven't, but I'm going to. I have not written any letters. I've try my hand at a fiction because that's really difficult for me. Most of my work is nonfiction. Much of it is humorous. I started writing down here in Cabo a few years ago before I took a class. I started writing little vignettes about my dog, Gibson, who's a very unique little guy. He's got a lot of shtick, as we call it. And I call it Tales, Tails of Gibson. And I'm still working on it and trying to find a home for it. I don't know if it would be, I don't know. So, but a lot of funny things. Just real quick, my husband ended up arrested due to traveling with Gibson. And it was just, there's a story there, but I'll keep that for.
That sounds like a great story.
Yeah, it's a good story.
What kind of dog?
A Shih Tzu poodle. He's not here for the first time, which yes, because my son had him at home. He's a little hard to travel with, and he's so lovable, but he's got a lot of shtick.
It sounds like a good project, and so that's sort of satirical nonfiction.
I've got another story in me about my husband and I. We were getting married, and we called it off, and the therapist we saw in the middle, who during our therapy was spraying breath spray and clipping her cuticles. But anyway, we did call off the first wedding, but we did get married, and it's 27 years. So
that's a great story.
Yeah, we all have so many stories. So
yeah,
that's what I'm doing.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of material to work with for sure. I had forgotten about breath spray until just this moment. It was like all the rage in junior high. Now that you mention it, I'm like, what?
Yeah, well, I just had never been to a therapist. So then my first one to have her clipping cuticles and spraying, it was just like a little out of body experience.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know if they sell it anymore. Oh, man. You should write a letter to her.
I should. Good idea. I like that.
That would be hilarious.
Because I have a short version of it called The One with the Breath Spray, and I've submitted it to a few places. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Have you gotten any, so you've been submitting. How long have you been submitting?
Not long, a few months. There's a fiction I submitted. That's really a long shot. And then some things through Submittable.
How do you like Submittable?
Well, let's see. I was denied within 2 hours once, which really, I think they said about 4% of people, I mean, I'm pretty tough skinned,
Yeah.
But how do I like it? I'm new to it. It's kind of an easy way.
Have you been published in anything else?
No, not yet, but I say not yet. What I can say about this is that it really gave me a lot of confidence to continue writing. I'm going to definitely write some more letters for your next volume. Yeah,
just so you know, not everybody quite understands how we work, and so I try to say it as much as I can, but 3 or more letters, our current system is that 3 or more letters gets you as what we call a legacy writer, and so it gets you a royalty percentage based on how many of your letters make it into the publication versus how many are in that particular publication. So, 1 letter gets you a free copy of the book. That's cool. Your name on the cover. That's great. And a byline, which is always nice for aspiring authors and working authors. But 3 or more will get you royalties. So I love sending out those checks. It's one of my favorite parts of the job, just because in a lot of instances, it's the author's first royalty check. And some of them come back because they framed them and they didn't actually cash it and that kind of thing. But
I would find that very exciting. When you say 3 or more, it's within 1 volume. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Correct. And so just, be on the lookout. We'll have another contest in January or February. I didn't want to make it too soon. My assistant wanted to do it right away. And I'm just like, no, because we had so many. We had over 200 submissions during that 3 or 4 week period. So it was very difficult to judge. Your letter was certainly accepted by all 3 judges and was in the publication, name on the cover, which is really cool. And our top, just judging the top 3 was so hard. It was so difficult because none of us agreed, and then we all had to agree at some point. Well, we all agreed on number 1, and which is the the first letter in the book. But yeah, it was just really difficult. So don't feel bad that you didn't get in the top 3, because I mean, you know, you made it in the book, over 200 submissions. So it's definitely something to be proud of. And I do look forward to more letters from you in the future. You have a very unique writing style, and I could see some humor there. And I certainly would like to hear more about your satire with your dog and stuff like that going forward.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you very much for being part of this publication, and
thank you.
I look forward to reading more letters from you in the future.
Yeah, and good luck with the projects.
All right, thanks a lot, Tina.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.